I used to believe deeply that if something felt hard, it meant that I was doing it right. Hard felt virtuous. Struggle felt honest. And ease, doing something simple, was suspicious to me. When life looked easy, I felt like I wasn't doing things the way they should be doing, or I wasn't working hard enough. When things felt easy, I felt like I probably wasn't doing it right, that life wasn't supposed to be easy. And I didn't question that belief for a long time because it was reinforced everywhere, especially as a woman, especially as a mom. I just felt like life wasn't supposed to be easy for me, not for people like me. If something felt exhausting, I told myself, well, this is just life. If it felt overwhelming, I assumed that that meant I was supposed to push harder. So it made my life harder than it needed to be, and I quietly resented it. I didn't say that part out loud. It felt like I wasn't allowed to, but I felt it. And I felt very alone in that feeling that life was hard. I felt like it was easy for everyone else. I want to talk today about how making things easier is not cheating, and why believing that it is might be one of the reasons that you're so tired. I've told stories in my other videos about how biking is a humongous part of my life. But when I first started getting more consistent in it, it was a little more challenging. So I created ways to make it easier on myself. I plotted out routes because I feel like routes are one of the hardest parts about biking or walking or running, is finding the right route so that you're not constantly figuring out if you're going to get lost, calculating your mileage, and figuring out if you're going to be able to get home before you pass out on the side of the road. So I plotted my routes and I made them in a big circle so that it was always easier to keep going than to turn around and go home. So I would make these huge loops as I started to do those routes and become more familiar with them and then expand them to get in more mileage. That what I was doing was removing the chicken exit. I was removing the easy way to get home faster, which then made the decision really simple for me to just keep going. I didn't have to decide, should I go 10 miles? Should I go 15 miles? Which route should I go? I just hopped on my bike and went. And I knew which way I was going to go. And I eventually just started going on autopilot so that I got in my mileage and I wasn't making any decisions about it. At first, this kind of felt like cheating, like I was making it too easy on myself to just keep going and doing the same route every day. Shouldn't I have some variety? Shouldn't I add some spice to my routes? Like, was this too simple? Like I was tricking myself into continuing to bike. But what I was doing was actually finally respecting the reality that I had. I didn't have the bandwidth to create a new route every single time I wanted to go on my bike. It made it too hard. It made it too hard to just get started. So I removed that decision and I got on my bike and I went the same route every single day. This shift didn't just change biking for me. It changed everything. It changed how I look at money. It changed how I look at time, work, even rest. And it's something that really matters to me. How can I make this easier so that I can do it consistently? So the hard work is the consistency, and you make everything else easier. Is it easy to bike 20 to 30 miles every single day? No, it's not easy. But I've removed the decision. So is the decision to get on my bike every single day difficult? Absolutely not. That's not the hard part anymore. Thank goodness. Because the biking is the hard part. That's the part that should be hard. The decision to get on the bike shouldn't be hard. And it's not for me anymore. And that's not just about biking. That's about so many things in my life. Sometimes I think we confuse effort with worth. We think if it's hard, then it's what counts. And if it's easy, it doesn't, and it's not worth doing. But that belief has consequences because it makes us overcommit or under-recover or burn out quietly. How many resonate with that, right? Burning out quietly, and then we blame ourselves for not being good enough and not wanting to do the things that we do. Hard does not mean good, and easy does not mean lazy. Ease is sustainable. I never want to be perceived as lazy. I really don't like that word. But what I have found is when I remove the decision, I can build that consistency because I'm not exhausted before I ever start. When I remove the decision about how I'm going to spend my money because I've already decided, I remove that fatigue, that exhaustion of having to make the same decision over and over and over again. That's why I created my guide, Decide Once, because I realized that what was working in my life could work in so many other people's lives. I surveyed some of my friends to find out what they were struggling with, and I wrote Decide Once to help answer some of their biggest questions, the biggest challenges they have in their lives. I hope it helps you. You can download it in the link in the description. This isn't just about biking. I decide once in a variety of areas of my life. And it makes things a little bit boring. Sometimes that is about dinner prep and groceries. We eat the same meals over and over again unless someone else wants to cook. Because I decide once, this is something my family likes. This is easy to prepare. This is healthy. This is what we can afford. And this is what I'm going to make. This is what I have the time to make. And so I have just a handful of recipes that are in rotation. And I can buy the things at the grocery store without thinking about it, prepare the meal, and I know everyone will eat it. I used to scour Pinterest and look for different recipes and wonder if my family would eat them and wonder if buying that random ingredient would go bad before I had the time to use the whole thing. And now I just decide once. I decide we're going to have spaghetti. I'm going to make spaghetti squash. I'm going to make gluten-free spaghetti. I'm going to make red sauce, white sauce, whatever it is. This is what I'm going to do. It goes great with broccoli. Everyone will eat it. Serve it. It takes 20 minutes to prepare. I know exactly what to expect. When you don't know what to expect, things can feel so overwhelming. And so I just remove that from my life in almost every way I possibly can, unless I want to invite like an element of surprise. But usually I don't. Usually I prefer boring, and it makes my life a lot easier. If your life feels like it requires constant effort just to maintain, if you feel like that duck paddling underneath the water, just trying to keep your head above water, I want you to hear this. You are not a failure. This is just a design problem. It's actually easier to fix than you may think. The design problem can be solved by deciding once, removing that exhaustion and that decision fatigue just around the deciding, the renegotiating all of the time. If you want help figuring out how you can make your life easier, I invite you to download my free guide, Decide Once, in the description below. And then I would love to hear what you're deciding once. Leave a comment. Let me know how you're doing.